You're someone who gets stuck in this never-ending loop of self-doubt and low self-esteem? Do you often find yourself scrolling through social media, comparing your life to others, and then eventually feeling like you're not enough? Hey, I get it. Life's pressures make it so easy for us to forget our own worth. I've been there. I was drowning in a sea of self-criticism and like being trapped in a cage of comparison. What if I told you that you do have the power to change all of this? Yes, you heard it right. You don't have to live the rest of your life feeling less than. You can break free. And I'm here to tell you how. In this video, we're going to unpack 4 game-changing habits that will help you build and maintain self-esteem. And don't worry, we're not going to talk about vague generalities in this video. We're going to dive into proven strategies, validated by experts and through deep psychological research. We're going to explore how our perception shapes our reality, how we perceive things, how it really creates a reality, and the role that plays in our self-esteem. Now, these are not just tips, these are life-changing habits. So if you're ready to stop the cycle of self-doubt and start living a life filled with confidence and purpose, then stick around. The journey to the best version of yourself starts right here, right now. So first, let me talk about self-esteem and self-perception. You see, self-esteem, you would have heard that term. This refers to how you evaluate your own worth, how worthy you think you are. It's essentially, it's a judgment you hold about yourself. For some people, it's apparent all of the time. It's essentially how much you appreciate and like yourself. Self-perception, on the other hand, is how you perceive your characteristics, your roles, and your abilities. So they're very similar, but they're different. These two are deeply interlinked. They're connected because your self-perception directly affects your self-esteem. How you see your abilities, your roles, these things affect your self-esteem. See, a negative perception of yourself can lead to so low self-esteem, and low self-esteem can further warp your self-perception. So they're like interconnected, and they create this vicious cycle. Now, Dr. Christine Neff, Associate Professor in Human Development at the University of Texas, extensively studied the impact of self-esteem and self-perception on overall well-being. Her research indicates that people with high self-esteem are generally more resilient, more adaptable, in spite of life's challenges. According to her, self-compassion also plays a very important role in this. So essentially, you need to be your own cheerleader and recognize that setbacks, by the way, we all have them, are a natural part of life. So let's consider 2 individuals here. Let's Tom and say Jerry. Both are equally skilled and are offered the same investment opportunity, let's just say. See, Tom has low self-esteem and thinks of himself, perceives of himself as not savvy enough to navigate the risks that come with any investment. Jerry has high self-esteem. He sees himself as capable and takes the calculated risk. And a year later, Jerry has diversified his income while Tom is still in the same financial position. Now, here self-esteem and self-perception didn't just affect their confidence, it actually affected their real-world outcomes. And I mentioned earlier about comparing. Let me talk here about the pitfalls of social comparisons, which most people do. You see, the concept of social comparison, it involves evaluating yourself in relation to others. This is quite normal and natural human tendency. But this can become very, very problematic when it turns into a habit. See, anything you do enough times, it will become a habit. And that will have a serious negative impact on your self-esteem. See, when you're comparing constantly, some people do, unfavorably yourself to others, whether it's their job, their appearance, their wealth, relationships, this can just basically completely remove your self-esteem. It erodes it. The issue is that social comparison often sets the unrealistic standard, sometimes leading to distorted self-perception and then, of course, low self-esteem. Now, Dr. Festinger, was the first one to introduce the social comparison theory in 1954. This explains how individuals evaluate their own abilities and opinions by comparing themselves to others. See, being aware of the pitfalls of social comparison is the first step in protecting your self-esteem. And you want to protect it, don't you? It's important to remember that everyone has their own unique path and their own sets of challenges. There's barely any path without challenges. So as we go further into this talk, we'll look at how to turn this awareness that you have now into actionable habits that constantly improve your self-esteem, bolsters it. So the next time you catch yourself scrolling through your social media feed, comparing your life to others, remember, you're only seeing a highlight reel. You see, people only show their best most of the time. You're not seeing a full movie. So your worth is not determined by how you stack yourself up against someone else's curated life, I should say. Now I want to talk about harnessing mindfulness and self-honesty. See, mindfulness involves staying present, fully engaging in the here and now. It means becoming aware of your thoughts and feelings and without judgment. Self-honesty, on the other hand, this involves truly acknowledging your strengths and your weaknesses at a certain point in time, your achievements and your mistakes, without any self-deception or pretense. You see, these two concepts are intertwined because practicing mindfulness enables you to be self-honest. When you're aware of your thoughts and feelings, it's so much easier to recognize areas where you might be deceiving yourself. And this awareness, by the way, then this acceptance can lead to way more balanced life and a very realistic self-perception, which is, again, super healthy for self-esteem. There's a social psychologist called Dr. Mark Leary, in fact, who researched extensively on the role of mindfulness and self-compassion on overall self-esteem. And his studies, I can tell you, they suggest that mindfulness helps reduce negative self-evaluation, and of course that increases our self-esteem. So let me give another example here. Let's take Emma, a super hard worker who constantly feels overwhelmed by her to-do list. She often sort of puts herself down for not accomplishing enough. And of course, for a long period of time, you can see how that would erode her self-esteem. So Emma decides to start practicing mindfulness. She sets aside 10 minutes each day. Simply observe her thoughts and feelings without judgment. She realizes that she often sets unrealistically high expectations for herself. And that leads to this constant feeling of inadequacy and this not enoughness. I want to speak about the power of purpose and service. You see, studies after studies have shown that having a sense of purpose involves a commitment to achieving long-term goals that are aligned with your values. Everybody has goals, but how many of your goals actually align with who you truly are, what you truly want, what's truly important to you? And this is the potent antidote to feelings of inadequacy and aimlessness. And then service or helping others is probably one of the most powerful ways to find that purpose. Because when you serve others, you're not only contributing to the greater good, but you're also reinforcing your own value and capabilities. And this massively boosts your self-esteem. By the way, this is not about external validation, but an intrinsic sense of fulfillment that can bring a way more sustained and grounded form of self-esteem. Now, psychologist Viktor Frankl is the author of Man's Search for Meaning, powerful book, emphasized the tremendous impact of purpose on mental well-being. He argued that finding meaning in life is he argued that finding meaning in life is one of the most effective ways to achieve this deep sense of fulfillment and in turn a healthier self-esteem. Finding a purpose does not necessarily mean you need to change your job, by the way, or make these dramatic life alterations. Small, meaningful acts of service can be an excellent starting point. The idea is to do something that aligns with your values and contributes to the well-being of others. 2 steps. Do something that aligns with your values and contribute to the well-being of something outside of yourself. Something bigger than yourself. Now, what comes into play is the control what you can principle. See, this control what you can principle, it focuses on identifying the areas in your life over which you have direct influence and then taking purposeful action to improve them. It's about shifting your energy from things you cannot control, like other people's opinions, and many times even global events. You see, a lot of people spend so much time on things they cannot control. If you're gonna have an influence at it, go all in. But spending so much energy thinking about them, is problematic. Shift it to things that you can control. And what are they? Your behavior, your reactions, and your mindset. Applying this principle fosters a sense of agency and competence. And these are critical components of healthy self-esteem. Stephen Covey's very well-known book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, introduces this concept of a circle of concern and a circle of influence. See, Covey advocates focusing energy on the latter, the circle of influence, which you can control, rather than the former, which you cannot. And this is very well supported by psychological research. There was a study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology which suggests that people who focus on what they can control tend to have way higher levels of self-esteem and well-being. And then the psychologist Albert Bandura's concept of self-efficacy, one's belief in one's ability to influence events that affect one's life, this relates very closely to self-esteem. One's ability to influence events that affect one's life. That's right. And the power in this principle lies in its simplicity. So simple. Identify what you can control and then take deliberate, purposeful action in those areas. And this sense of agency becomes like this virtuous cycle where taking control and making improvements leads to such an incredible boost in self-esteem, and which in turn encourages more actions. It becomes this really beautiful cycle. More self-esteem, more action in that direction. More action, more self-esteem, and so on and so forth. So share with me in comments what will you do now, what will you do immediately to move towards boosting your self-esteem so that can move you in the direction that you want to go. And I'll see you in another video very soon.